Welcome to another episode of Beyond Sunday. Actually, we are back. So remember that we keep it real with faith in life because, as you all know, life be lifing. And as we always do, we do it with myself and Pastor Thomas. Today, since we're back and it's back to school time, we're going to talk about some back to school stuff. We're going to keep it real about how the parents feel, adults feel, kids feel, maybe what you should be prepping for, all the things that we should be covering on back to school. So before we get into it, though, I do want to, since it's been so long since we've seen you all, do want to go to Pastor Thomas. And how you doing? How you been?
Oh, man, I've been great. Everything's been going good. Just trying to deal with the heat here in Texas and trying to stay on top of all the great things that are happening around me.
Yeah, please don't mention the heat. It was 110 yesterday.
It's very hot.
Yeah, unnecessarily hot.
Mm-hmm.
And I have to put my own child out there because, she's in band camp right now.
Mm-hmm.
And so, she's preparing for that back to school life, but she going there, getting outside, getting a little bit more chocolate because of that sun. And so she's experiencing, and I tell people all the time, it ain't the same experience that I had when I was in school. So
I talked to her this past Sunday. She seems like she's having a great time though.
She's enjoying it.
She loves
she's
it.
changing colors. I told her by the time she's done, she's gonna be my skin tone. So.
Hey.
But no, let's go ahead and get into it. So first and foremost, I drive all the time, obviously taking my kid, and I'm seeing a lot of these teachers back. As an educator, I remember what it felt like to prepare for those moments. And now I'm seeing it on the parent side. So what are some like ideas or thoughts that you would give to parents or say to parents, or even though you're an empty nester now,
right.
But what were some of the things that you dealt with that you felt that prepared you for getting back to school or getting your kid back to school?
Yeah, I mean, I think parents giving themselves like a little bit of on-ramp, like the first few weeks prior to school starting, and not kind of running things right up until school starts. So start building a routine, like bedtimes and, schedules and structure. Start putting some of that stuff into place, because what tends to happen is you're kind of going, and you're trying to let the kids enjoy as much of the last few days of summer. You're trying to enjoy the last few days, and all of a sudden, now it's time to get school supplies and school clothes, and now we're looking for all the things, and now we're trying to figure out what a class schedule is and what a drop-off is and what a pickup is, and you're getting emails and bus schedules and all the things. So
you said school supplies. So different time, kids older than mine. School supplies, I was just told this morning that you can buy the whole kit for like over $100-something. Was that always a thing? Was that a thing when?
Oh, no. We used to get the list.
Right.
And you could get the list based on which school they were going to. So you would get the list for the overall school, but then we would turn around and get a list from the teacher as well. Yeah. So, for example, this would be a general list that every student would need. We would have that list. And then for his science class on the first day, we would get another list for that particular teacher.
That's insane.
Yeah.
But I know the list exists because I can get that list and I can go down to the store and just pick out each one of the things a la carte. And to be quite honest, even that list gets a little extensive.
Yeah.
But I mean, when I was told about this kit, now I got 3 in school. So over $100-something for each kid. So I guess my question or my thought process is, what is this expectation of parents and spending this amount of money? I just don't remember my mama spending this much money. Maybe I'm wrong.
Well, and if you think about it, can you get the exact same things in the kit cheaper than what
individually
than what the school is paying for? Or some of those things you may not even buy. You might be like, yeah, I'm not buying that. I'll hear parents sometimes talk about, I'm not buying 14 boxes of tissue, Kleenex or whatever. I'll buy 1 or 2, or I'll do this or do that. Or some parents will buy school supplies at different points during the year. So I'm going to buy you a few things to get you started. And then as the school year goes on, then I'll buy you some more. Because kids tend to lose things, misplace things. They don't know where it's at.
So I'm going to come from an educator mindset. So what's weird is I have this weird flip-flop thing because I'm an educator, but I'm a parent. So when I see that list, and so like the 12 box of tissues, I be like, I'm not buying that. But I know the 12 box of tissues is for the for the teacher because they're not supplied with a lot of things from the school system. I guess for me, I don't know. I've always been one of them kind of educators that was just very like pro support the teachers.
Mm-hmm.
Should parents buy these extra boxes of tissues and extra hand sanitizers and extra markers that we know the kid individually isn't going to use, but we know it's for the classroom? Should parents buy it? Do you feel the school should support it?
Well, I mean, we obviously know the school doesn't, right? So we know school's not going to do it. And so I think a part of being of the community in the classroom, you know, it can be helpful for teachers to be able to have that so that they're not bearing that expense themselves. Mm-hmm. So, yeah, I mean, I definitely think, you know, we participated. You know, we knew our son wasn't going to use that much, but we said it's for the class, so we would go ahead and do it. But we tended to try to make sure that whatever school supplies we were buying what was on sale.
Fair.
So, you know, if they wanted something that was a specific brand, if that wasn't required for that particular class, you're going to get whatever the next best thing is.
I'm going to be very honest. Equate is definitely my friend sometimes. Equate, hand sanitizer, tissue. Now, I want to be fair in saying this. When I had one kid, I would buy a little bit more of those.
Yeah, sure.
But when those kids started getting on down the line,
right?
Yeah, I wasn't buying as much. So,
like when the spirals come back and they be all bent up,
the
cover torn off of them and everything. Yeah.
Well, see, now we're talking about that. See, because like folders, I have a problem with the folders because the folders got to be specific type. It can't just be the regular folders that you get. It had to be the folder with the brads in it, with the pockets. Like you're going too far. We're going too far. Can they just have a regular folder? But you know, I don't know. I miss the days of Trapper Keepers and.
See, that was it right there.
Yeah, you just get a couple Trapper Keepers and you good.
Now, my Trapper Keeper never lasted the whole school year.
How?
Because the little flat part at some point would just...
The Velcro?
It just end up coming
It would give out. It would give out, but I mean, it still held your stuff together.
It did.
Oh, wow. Okay. Well, mine, I don't know. Mine.
But that was back in the days when we would get textbooks. And we used to love putting the book covers on the textbook, like you know, making them look good and all that.
Well, we got the book covers, and then you know you had a brown paper bag one too. Yep. We did that. So yeah, no, and then you get the book cover that had the outline of where you're supposed to fold.
Right.
Yeah. Speaking of which, like, do you? Because I know, and you don't really experience this anymore. See, it's weird to talk about this because you don't have a kid in school anymore. But like, I know kids don't really take textbooks home now. Do you think that is a part of education where we're probably missing the mark, or do you think that's a good thing?
100%. I do think, you know, a fully digital native environment, you know, has its positives and its negatives. And one of the things that we do understand from a research standpoint is the more that kids or adults or individuals have actual interaction with books and writing, it does a lot for the brain and how the brain operates. And so from a digital standpoint, one of the things I notice is that there's a lot of overstimulation with all of the digital, all the stuff coming in digitally, right? Because everything is accessed that way. Everything you want to do. I mean, so much so now that even if you go to McDonald's, like you're not necessarily talking to a person. You walk up to a screen and you place your order. And so that requires a certain level of stimulation to the central nervous system that never has the opportunity to calm down because we're constantly stimulating it. So we end up with a bunch of overstimulated kids and adults.
So you think we need to go back to books?
I think books need to be a part of it. I'm not saying it has to all be books, but I think, you know, there is a lot to learn. One of the things I think we even notice in church now with younger generations is they're starting to use a physical Bible. They want to be more analog. They want to move away from some of the stimulation, like they actually want to physically look at it. And if you think about it, you know, sitting and reading a book, if we were to monitor like your central nervous system and how you're responding, it slows down tremendously versus the digital contact.
Now, and so I know too that like parents got to a point of saying, I don't like when teachers are sending my kids home with so much homework. And I know that was also part of the conversation of why less homework, books being sent home. Like, do you think that that's something that needs to continue? Do you, or do you feel like homework is necessary? The rigorous work that you're doing at home is necessary for educators. I mean, not for educators, but for students and for parents now.
You know, that's interesting because as a parent, that wears you down. Like, depending on how much homework they have, and then they have a project or they got something to do, and then they're coming home doing an hour, 3 hours or whatever of homework. Yeah, that does get a little bit taxing, but I do think having that repetition of practicing is, obviously important. There's probably a balance in there somewhere about how much homework is really necessary to make sure that they really master a skill.
Yeah, I can say as a former band student, one of the things that I used to get frustrated is like I'd have to practice that at home because that was definitely something that, and a lot of people miss this. I got to say this out loud. Parents, if kids have band, if they have band, it is a class. It's not something that they do after school that's random. Specifically in the state of Texas. Texas, band is a class. If a kid does not do what they're supposed to do in band, they will fail. So I wanted to put that out there. But I would have to have band practice, and then an English teacher gives me homework, then a social studies teacher gives me homework, and the math teachers give me homework, and I'm just like, hey man, did you forget I have other classes? Like we just piling this stuff on. So I can kind of get it from that perspective. And then going back to something that I was saying earlier, like as a parent in this economy, just thinking about how finances are rolling, gas is up, groceries are up. From what I'm hearing and researching, like a lot of, jobs are quote unquote scarce. What would you say to parents who are kind of in that position and dealing with that struggle of trying to maintain life in this particular economy while still having kids going to school and trying to pay for these things, trying to keep their kids active in certain things? What would you say to parents who may be struggling in those moments?
Well, I mean, I think it's like, probably previous generations have done too, in terms of prioritizing what you can do versus what you want to do, right? So it's like, what do we really need to do versus what you would like to do? And I think one of the things I think that's different, to go along with what you're saying, is one of the things that I observe now is that kids are so busy. Like, they are so busy. And I think and I wonder if that's different than previous generations. So certainly in my generation, I remember growing up, once you got out of school, there wasn't a lot of extracurricular stuff that you did. You had, if you played sports, you had that after school. Wednesdays, was usually youth group or church or something like that. So there wasn't a lot of other additional activities. But now when you talk to parents, it's like, okay, my kid goes to school, and then after that, they've got personal training. And then after that, they've got practice, or they've got a rehearsal, or they've got individual practice, and sometimes that practice is multiple times a week. When we talk to parents are like, well, I don't want my kids sitting around doing nothing. And I'm always like, why? Why don't you want them doing anything? Because if they're at school for 6-7 hours a day, learning to be able to do things on your own, play with others, occupy yourself is very important, right? To develop that potential skill, because what ends up happening is you begin to think that you have to be stimulated, always have something to do. Like, I always got to have something to do, because then boredom feels like a negative emotion.
Fair. But I don't know if I'm thinking about when I was younger, and I don't know how things were when you were younger, but I always had something to do, but it was in a different capacity.
Sure.
In the sense that, I played different sports when I was younger. So I did baseball, basketball, soccer. I was in band. So I did all those things. But even after school, when I got home, I was still doing something by going outside and playing.
Yeah, 100%.
So I think in culture now, it looks different because the average kid isn't outside playing.
Right.
So
then
they substitute that
with some structured.
Right.
Yeah.
So where is the disconnect, I guess, because it's just a substitute for another thing?
Well, I think the disconnect is it doesn't usually leave families and parents with a lot of margin. If you think about schedule-wise, right, when you're talking about that, the margin was when you got home, you could go outside and play or do something else. It wasn't a structured situation. You can go outside and play, or you can do nothing, right? But when it's a structured situation, okay, well, now parents have got to take you somewhere. Okay, there's something structured that you have to do. Okay, in order to participate in this thing, there's usually a cost, and there's something you got to do several times a week. Okay, well, you got to do that several times a week, and then most of the events or games or tournaments are on the weekend. Okay, well, so now this thing is something we do in practice during the week, but then we also have to turn around and do tournaments and stuff on the weekends as well. So I don't know that it leaves a lot of margin. And so from the standpoint of parents, there is a cost. So when you talk about the cost, it's not only a financial cost, but I think there's a time cost too.
Yeah.
Like how much margin is there in life for parents now? And so during the summertime, I think parents find that margin, they enjoy it, the kids enjoy it, and then we go back in the fall and all the margin gets eaten up, right? And so now we're just trying to get through the week.
So what will be the result? Like, because to your point, a lot of parents are saying, I don't want my kids just doing nothing. Doing nothing in this day and age can end up being more negative than positive, right? Social media is a thing. When we start looking at how technology is consuming kids, like that could be a negative. So what would be the alternative to, not having them active and not spending that time, not spending that money? Like, what would be the alternative?
Some of it's just unstructured. It's having unstructured time to either pursue some other interest or some other hobby or something they can do at home. Doesn't have to be digitally, native. It could be something else. And giving yourself and your kids an opportunity to have some margin. It's interesting to me, like when I talk to adults, I'll ask this question. And it's not something I learned either, but I'll ask adults, who taught you how to rest? And most often, nobody, right? Because many of us were taught to have a good work ethic, right? You need to be productive, and you need to go to work, and you need to show up on time, and you need to do the best job you can do. But nobody actually taught you how to rest. Well, what do? We turn around and we raise kids, and we say you need to have a good work ethic. And in whatever you're doing, whether it's band or whether it's some other structured activity, you need to be out there giving your best. But when do we teach them, or how do we teach them that there's a point when you rest and you don't do anything? And this is what rest looks like. And I talk to adults all the time who say, I really don't know how to rest. Like, I literally don't know how to do that.
Yeah, it's interesting that you say that. So there's two thoughts that come to mind. First off, I think about my own situation and my own family. So like my daughter, and I mean, you actually know this, but for the people who don't, she was in volleyball and she was in band in middle school. But because middle school band isn't as extensive as high school band, we let her stay in it. But I told her, I said, because you're in high school band, and I know that world, you're not going to be able to do volleyball. I'm not putting you through, that type of schedule where you're doing that much and then turning around and trying to do volleyball and still trying to do classes. That's too much for you. And so I made that conscious decision to do that for my kid. But I don't know. Sometimes on the flip side, in the back of my mind, and this is just in my mind as a parent, just being very open, sometimes I'm kind of like, well, if she's on the moments when she's not in band, like where is she going technology wise? Because my brain is always like, well, I want her to practice,
sure,
but she's been practicing, she's been playing all morning. She's she's has rehearsal from I think 8 to 5.
Right.
So when she comes home, I know being out in the sun, that makes you just want to sleep.
Right.
But I want her to practice, so because I want her to be, productive. I don't want her just sitting and doing nothing.
What is it with that?
Well, what's the phrase? The idle. What does it say? The idle mind. I can't remember the phrase.
Is it devil's workshop?
Yeah, I think that's what it is. But now here's the flip side to that. Now here's the second point. To your point, I think all of that is a cultural thing anyway.
Right.
Because what I've been learning through like some studying and then some TikTok stuff too, is that when it comes to rest, there was this situation prior to the 8-hour mindset that was like original culture used to sleep. I mean, they used to rest for like 4 or 5 hours.
Right.
And then they would do whatever they needed to do. And then they rest again for another 4 or 5. So it was like 8 hours of rest, and then working all day wasn't a thing. So is that where this culture of not resting comes from? Like, I don't know. These are all things.
No,
just like,
I think there's definitely a shift, right? So when I, in when I grew up, most things closed at 5 o'clock. Work wise, like parents got off they were
at 5 and was it.
That was it, right? So they were off at 5. Some commuted, some didn't commute very far, but usually 5:30, 6 o'clock, everybody's kind of under the same roof. We don't live that life now. Like some parents are commuting distances. Some parents have to be at work before their kids are even at school, and they're still there after their kids get out of school. And so there's usually not a lot of margin. When you start talking to parents, like some parents literally their margin for the day might be 2 hours. It might be. By the time they get through with everything they need to do, closing out the day, preparing for the next day, all the things, 2 hours of margin. I don't know that was that way previously. And then when you add something structured to it, like band or again, like one of those other activities, a lot of times those things can go for several hours. So you got to drop a kid off at 6 o'clock, or you got to take them to something, and that could be 6 to 8. Okay, well now you come at home, if there's homework to be done, if there's food to be ate, like I got to get them straight to bed. That day for a parent is a 12, 13, 14-hour day before you know it. When you realistically think about it, if you think about right now where you are, parenting with your kids, thinking about the activities and the things they're doing, when school starts back, how long is that day?
I mean, I even got to wait till school start back. Me and my wife, we don't really get to actually sit until about 9. And my alarm goes off at 5:20 in the morning.
Right.
So, yeah.
But
I mean, you're not wrong.
But is all of that in the name of I don't want my kid to be doing nothing? Because doing nothing seems to be really expensive if that's the case.
Well, no. So for me, and I can only speak for myself, that's not what that's for. I don't, because see, my thing was for me, I always wanted my kids in some activity. It doesn't have to be multiple activities. So, you know, right now my son is going to start band in middle school. My daughter, between dance and band, I don't know what she's going to do.
Right.
But I want them to be active in some type of structured thing. It doesn't have to be multiple things. After that, it's fine. So that's for me. It's not in the sake of them, you know, not being idle. It's just, I just want them to be in something active. Once they're done, it's fine.
But at what point does that become too expensive? At what point do we say we have to bring balance to all of this?
I mean, but I don't know if that's on the parent though. So understand what I'm saying. When I played baseball when I was younger,
right?
My mom signed me up. I think it was my mom and my dad, either one. They signed me up. They already had bats. They already had helmets. I just had to get the pants and the shirt or the jersey. That was it. That's not the same.
No.
Because culture changed that.
Right.
So I don't know what the answer to that is, because culture has changed everything.
But I think the expense goes beyond just the financial costs. I mean, what is the overall expense to not having the kind of balance and margin that you and your kids need, right? As you look forward to a school year that's getting ready to start here in less than a month, how do you look at that and go, okay, how do we make sure from a capacity standpoint that we are not overextending ourselves and committing to far more than we really and truly need to for the development and well-being of our kids?
I don't know. And I guess the reason why I don't know, and I guess from the way that I look at it, again, this is just all the way my brain processes. I think culturally, things have also scared us, not me personally, but just us as a culture, into feeling and believing that kids who are not active will only then go down the tube, right? Be involved in things that are non-productive, be out here on these teen takeovers that are going around these different cities and states. Like, if they're not active in something structural, then that will only lead them down those paths. So I think that's what
So let me translate what you just said. My child needs to be entertained at all waking hours.
No.
How is that not the case?
I'm not saying that. First of all, it's not. I don't think it's being entertained. I think
they have to be stimulated in some type of way, because if they're not stimulated, then the only option is that they go off the rails.
Again, I think that's just a cultural thing that has been presented to us.
But is that a truth?
I don't know if that's the truth.
Like some of what we talk about, especially from a parental standpoint and a societal standpoint, is rooted in a fear of something that statistically doesn't usually happen.
Fair.
Right? So we're fearful that you have used the word non-productive several times. If my child is not productive, non-productivity could lead to these other things. Is that possible? Maybe, but your child also has been instilled with values. They're also being supervised at the same time. So some of the things that you may be fearful of are not really going to happen, because your child doesn't have proximity to those things. They're not doing those things.
Fair. Everything you're saying has merit. To me, I look at it as the example of the kids who get kidnapped, right? And I'm using this as an example. In the 90s, kids used to play outside all the time.
Sure.
But then we get those PSAs of those random people who will pull up in these white vans who be like, hey kids, you want candy?
Right.
At the time, that didn't stop people from letting their kids play outside, because we didn't see that in mass a lot. That just wasn't a thing. Right. But now in social media culture and news culture, everything is put on and put out there in the masses, which then puts a quote unquote fear in us about something that may not even be happening at a large percentage. So what's the result? We don't send our kids outside, because every kid, or a lot of parents think, well, my kid's going to get snatched up if they're playing outside, right, based on the information that was fed to us. Mm-hmm. So I think that's just kind of what it is. Just that, I guess it's the cultural shift.
No, I don't disagree with you. Statistically, kids are safer in the current environment than they were in previous generations, simply because there's a lot more visibility to where kids are, what they're doing. There's already a hypervigilance to the idea of, kids being harmed. So like, kids are far safer. I'm not saying that things can't happen, but a lot of the ways that, to your point, the fears that we have in society, the things that we're fearful of that drive us to keep kids stimulated and busy all the time, are not really rooted in what really usually happens, to your point. But still, as a parent, at some point, like, how do you, if you're looking at the new school year and it's coming, it's going to happen. Like, how do you bring balance, and and I think you bring balance to that, to your point, is that we're not going to stretch our capacity beyond that. There's going to be some downtime. Like, in doing therapy, it is not unusual at this time of year for a parent to say, I don't have anything for my kids to do, and I don't know what I'm going to do. And you know what I tell them? That kid's going to be fine. With nothing to do, your kid is going to be perfectly fine. It has happened for previous generations, and those individuals were fine. Well, so I don't have to have something for them to do every day. No, it's good for them to learn how to be self-sustaining, have some self-efficacy, to be like, what am I going to do today? Like, in our home, there's many of things that you can do. Sometimes it's okay to do nothing at all.
So your recommendation is pull kids out of activities.
That is not what I'm saying. What I am saying is really, truly measure the cost in terms of, what is this going to cost us all the way across the board? And what are we communicating? And what are we doing? Are we putting our kids in a situation where they're going to be constantly overstimulated and then end up sitting in a classroom overstimulated because they've never had any time to really just decompress, or really had any time for the central nervous system to calm down, and they're going to be a problem for the educator? You were an educator. You saw overstimulated kids all the time, every single day.
Yeah. And to your point, that's usually the difficulty in trying to teach them, is because they're not used to sitting still.
Right.
and the culture for a classroom is you have to sit still. You have to pay attention. You have to focus on the lesson. And educational data has tried to find multiple ways to incorporate their level of activity in a normal classroom structure between, what do they call it, turn and talks,
right?
Group activities, like all these different things. And a lot of it necessarily hasn't fully been positive. So yeah, I don't know. I guess you're right. So I guess today I'm pulling my kids out of band and no.
I'm certainly not suggesting that. No. I think there are times, obviously, when kids have too many things going on, right? And it means that the parents also end up with a lot of things to deal with. Like I said, taking them here, taking them there, taking them all over the place.
Yeah. No, I agree with that. I as a teacher, I've seen kids who were in my band class, but then they played basketball and then they played baseball, or they played soccer and then they played football, and ran track. So, and then we had to figure out how to make their schedule work with all the different things that was going on. So no, I don't disagree with that.
Well, and it also doesn't mention just the different things that the parents have going on.
Right.
And trying to keep up with all things that they have. And then there's kids' functions and birthday parties, and there's family events, and there's all the things. And looking at the school year already, I can imagine some parents are already beginning to feel that angst. Yeah. And that being overwhelmed, like, oh my goodness, here we go. Right. And as your child advances in school each year, there's always a new thing, that they have to do, a new challenge, a new something that they have to deal with that you didn't deal with the previous year. To your point, kid going into middle school, that looks different. Kid going into high school looks different.
Yeah. And I think it's interesting too, because when you start talking about like kids' levels of like their levels of education that they're going to, like you said, the work can get more rigorous.
Right.
And then it's funny because like a lot of parents get excited for kids because we get to drop them off at school. But the reality is there's other things that come along with that, not just the activities that they're in, but, parent-teacher conferences or meetings and all these different things. I know last year, last 3 years, it was my daughter's science projects. Now it's about to be my son's science projects. So, no, I actually... I get what you're saying. Yeah, I'm not going to pull my kids out, though.
The follow-up, the follow-through, the managing, I need to manage this relationship with all of their teachers. And, there's testing, and I need to make sure they're prepared for that. And, I got to make sure that there's a plan when they're out of school because they have staff development days. Like, there are just so many different things that I think so many layers to it that parents deal with when a new school year starts. And trying to have balance is really hard.
Okay. So let's take ourselves out of the parent mindset for a second. Let's see if we can shift our time or our mindsets back to being a kid or thinking from a kid perspective. As they are getting ready to go to school, like what were some of the things that you were worried about going into school when you were on summer break and going back?
That first day outfit. Yeah. Like that first day fits.
First day fits.
That set the tone for the whole year.
Really?
So that was a whole ordeal because you had to be like, hey, what I'm gonna wear on Monday, Tuesday, like.
Yeah. See, that's why. But see, you said it set the tone for the whole year. The problem I've always seen, and maybe it's just me and the way that I look at things. I don't ever think it sets the tone for the whole year. Because your first week is always dope. But then, like anything after that, you just regular again.
But you're going to be known for, like, what kind of kicks you have on, what kind of style you have.
Fair.
It sets the tone. Back when I was in school, it definitely set the tone.
Again, I don't disagree. I'm just saying I never thought that it was always for the year. It just kind of, to me, that first week was a representation of the person that people were who they were.
Especially if you were going into like a transition, going to middle school, going to high school.
Yeah. You got to come out. But that's just a representation of who you are. I don't know if it is just like, because if somebody come like super fly the first day or the first week, the expectation is that they're going to be that way every week. And I've seen a lot of people come hard the first week, and then after that they just kind of fall off. They just super regular. But they came good that first week though. You got to set the tone that first week, true, but they don't carry over. Some people don't carry over. I'm just saying.
First day fit, wondering who was going to be in your class. Getting your schedule, because we didn't always get our schedules before the first day of school.
Yeah, we got them. I know we got them on the first day.
Yeah, we
in homeroom.
We didn't get them before.
Yeah. Oh yeah, a lot of kids.
And then we
a lot of kids get theirs now before school even starts.
Right, so we wouldn't get them until then. Yeah. So looking forward to that. Making sure you got your school supply and your backpack like you want it. Got everything packed. I didn't sleep good that first night. That night before, there's too much anticipation and all that kind of stuff. It was never negative though.
No, it was never negative. So you had to make sure you had the fresh haircut. The cut had to be fresh. You couldn't go with a bad lineup. That was
right.
And then you didn't
want to get that haircut until that weekend.
That weekend right before.
Yeah.
But see, that's when the barbers were packed.
Oh yeah, they would be packed.
So you be sitting there
before appointments,
right, and before everybody was charging like $60 for a haircut.
Yeah, you had to be there all day.
Yeah, you sit in there, you go in there with your dad or your mom, and you sit and you listen to the conversations, and then you can't sit in the dude that don't got a lot of people coming in his chair.
Not the new guy. You
because you already knew your lineup was gonna be terrible.
You don't do the new guy. No.
Yeah, you couldn't do that. Yeah,
you weren't gonna let him test out.
No. Now, what I tell you, what I used to do, that's just me. This is how I was when I was in school. I was always concerned about the girls that were going to be in every single class that I was in.
100%.
Okay. I just wanted to make sure 100%. I wasn't alone.
I wanted to make sure had to be in the class if they weren't.
Absolutely. I was going to have a rough time in that class if it wasn't nobody cute in there.
Oh, for real?
Yeah. Okay.
I agree with you 100% on that.
All right. So, next thing, when it comes to the girls' conversation, did you have a girlfriend when you started in 9th grade?
Absolutely not. Why would I do that?
Some people have transfers.
Oh, no.
Some people transfer from middle school to
it was a whole new world.
Fair. I don't disagree with that. I just had to ask. I didn't start high school with a girlfriend. Now, I had one every year.
Now, I would say fashion was very different than I think it is now.
Absolutely.
I think, I know there's a lot of athletic wear and stuff like that. That wasn't.
Yeah.
That wasn't something that during my time wasn't a lot of athletic wear.
No, not at all. As a matter of fact, I kind of get frustrated now when I see some of these people on social media who go back and look at their old pictures and they be like, "Oh, y'all thought y'all was dressing for a job interview back."
Oh yeah,
yes, absolutely.
That's what it was. Yeah.
Man, I was just thinking about one of the fits that I had. I had a little sweater vest with the collared shirt on and a pair of slacks with some duck heads. Man, I was fly back then.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, had to make sure that my waves was on swim back in the day. I don't got no more waves anymore. They all gone. But yeah, so okay. So as far as kids, first day of school, we already got that out the way. Now, as far as classes, like what is the thing that you would tell your kids nowadays as far as what you should be focused on in class nowadays? So like even if you think about your time,
right?
Like what is the thing that you would tell kids?
I think the big thing is to be engaged from the very beginning. Number one is like be engaged from the very beginning because it's harder to climb out of that hole than it is to start high. And if you slip and build yourself back up. So if you start out with low grades and zeros and all that, climbing out that hole doesn't make a lot of sense. And that's something that's interesting to me now in the current environment because we didn't have a second chance. Like a lot of school districts now, if you miss an assignment,
they give you an opportunity.
They give you an opportunity. Sometimes you can get the whole grade. Sometimes you can get up to 70% of the grade or whatever. That zero was a flat goose egg. Yeah, that was just it.
It was not changed. Yeah, but the reason also why is because you had the physical grade book.
Right.
Wasn't no teachers going back and redoing that math. Once they did that math, it was done. It was done.
So it's always been interesting to me that in the current time, like, students are like, well, I'll just make that up at the end. And I'm like, why would you work harder? Because you got work that's already that you still have to do current, and then you got to go back and do the old stuff. And I was like, okay, that never made sense to me. So my thing is always start out strong. Like I always start out on top, doing your work. Second thing is always try to build a good relationship with your teacher.
Yes. Yeah.
I always try to build a relationship. Like you can come in a lot of different ways, but one of the things that students can learn early is the power of good relationships. You have a good relationship with teacher, you can ask for help, you can get assistance as you need it, you can even get grace if you need it, if you build a good relationship with your teacher. But, a lot of times it's like, oh, I don't like my teacher. My teacher don't like me. You ain't got to like them.
Right.
They ain't got to like you.
Not at all.
You can still have a good relationship with them.
That's it.
Have a good relationship with them.
Now, do you believe in the myth of you have to sit at the front of the class? Do you think that's a...
First of all, you started off by saying a myth.
Well, I mean, I don't know if it's been proven or not. So it's a myth right now.
I do think you need to sit somewhere in a class that best suits you so that you know that you're paying attention and you're engaged.
Fair.
You know, I don't know the educators. I don't know that it matters. That would be a question for an educator, I think, more than me. But I've never been a person that sits in the front of the classroom. You know, I would sit in the middle somewhere. I wouldn't sit in the back. I couldn't sit in the back and be my mother's child. So that was going to be a problem. So but I wasn't going to sit on the front row either.
Yeah.
I didn't want the attention.
That was me.
Yeah.
Because see, I was one of them kind of people who, like, I could learn, but I don't want you to call on me.
Right. Don't call on me.
Don't call on me. So I don't want to be in the front because then you think I want to be called on. No. I need to be behind a lot of people.
Right.
Duck to my head, you know, just in case, you know, act like I'm writing something, just in case, you know, you want to call on somebody randomly. I was a person who was like, I'm gonna go ahead and take that back seat. I'm gonna take that back seat. Now, couple of reasons why I did that. Not in every class, but some of my friends were back there. Some of the girls I like were back there.
Right.
So, you know, that was my. But don't follow in my footsteps with that. Y'all choose what Pastor Thomas said. Y'all choose what's best for you. Best, not what you necessarily want. All right. So, I want to talk biblical here for a second. Parents, teachers, kids, from a biblical perspective, what's the best way to prepare for our kids getting back into school, us as parents being able to navigate our kids being in the school, safety concerns, educational concerns, teachers getting into school. I have to say it, their safety concerns, their mental capacity, taking on these challenges. What's the best way biblically to be able to attack that?
Right. I think, one of the things that parents and all of us can do, obviously is praying, praying with your students, praying with your kids, making that a regular part of the routine of them getting out of the door, reminding them ultimately that there's a sovereign God who is watching over them and taking care of them and taking care of situations in their school. Also, having them to memorize scriptures. Like one of the scriptures that I remember helping me get through school was that I can do all things through Christ who strengthens me. And that was something that I had to call on a lot because, there were points when I didn't feel like doing it or it was hard. But, having certain scriptures memorized, I think was very important for me. Knowing that there's a community constantly praying for the students, praying for the educators. The church can, make that a central theme too, right? As we get around school and reminding that we need to continue to pray for these students and pray with them. And so I think those are things that, we can obviously do and that are really important for them to be able to do, as well. Also, one of the other things I think that's important is like the social aspect, because we talked about the academic part, but the social aspect too. And, navigating peer relationships can be hard. Like one of the things that's very different in our current time is if we did something embarrassing, like we had a slip or fall or something embarrassing happen, only those people in that circle could see it, right? Only people in that vicinity would see it. And it might get shared with other people, but it usually died. Like it wasn't something. Now
it's everywhere.
Yeah.
People in Japan gonna see it.
Yeah, it can get captured on video and that thing can be everywhere. I know we're in Texas, we're not allowed to have phones, out and stuff in school. But, there is that threat that, something that it's embarrassing to you can happen. So the social aspect I think is so key too. And really working, with students and kids to really help them to see their own value being internal and obviously spiritual and not being so caught up in what the external value is. Like I will tell kids all the time, why are you worried about another imperfect person telling you something positive? Right? Because the person who's telling you, I'm like, I tell students this, all of y'all in there struggling together. Y'all do realize that, right? Like all y'all on the struggle bus. Like ain't nobody in there not on the struggle bus. Like all of you are working to get an education. So, we have to be careful about letting somebody else's opinion or comment about us, an imperfect person, affect us so negatively. Because that social aspect weighs heavy.
Yeah,
right? That can make a student not want to go to school at all.
Yeah. I know. For all of my kids, I know I have them say an affirmation every morning, and then they end it with a prayer. That's something I've been doing since my first daughter started going to school, and it's just carried on. And I know that's something I try to instill in them a lot, and so it's been a normal routine. So everything that you said, I think 100% hits the nail on the head. Well, outside of that, is there anything else that you want to add on to that, or you basically closing out?
No, I think one of the things that I would really encourage parents to do is you look forward to the school year, and even educators, like, how do I build in enough margin for me and my kids and our family to have balance, prioritize what is important, but at the same time making sure that rest is on the list. Because rest is one of those things where if we don't put it on the list, it's most likely not going to happen. So it does need to be on the list. It needs to be on the list of priorities. And so how do I build enough margin? How do I make sure that we have the capacity to do what we say we're going to do? You may have had more capacity last school year than you do this school year. And you may have to say, okay, we're going to have to do something different because we just don't have that capacity. That's not a bad thing. Like, I think teaching your kids that there are times when you can dial things up and dial things back is really key for them to be able to make adjustments as adults.
Okay. All right. Well, you all heard it here. I'm not going to say you heard it here first, but you definitely heard it at one of the best places ever. But hey, just make sure that you are following all the steps that Pastor Thomas is giving, because he's giving some great nuggets. Also, please, or good luck to all the students who are going back, and as well as the mental status for all the teachers. As a former educator, I understand what it means to walk back into the schoolhouse. So please stay prayed up. And also parents, please stay prayed up, prayed over your kids, pray every morning, pray every night, do whatever it is that you need to do to make sure that Christ is continuing to be the leader in everything that you guys are doing. Outside of that, though, man, this has been a great discussion, a great topic. As we always do, we want to say thank you to Pastor Thomas for being here and giving us all the great nuggets. And remember, man, this is not a Sunday talk. This is an everyday walk. And we will see you all next time. And I will be pulling my kid out of band right now.